Okay, so it's now 10 to 2 on Wednesday the 14th of August 2024. I've completed the assessments against what we agreed on the assessment plans there, Andy. But I suppose before I go any further, have you found it?
Fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, a few points to pick back up on.
Yeah.
Remembering like the law, like you said, and looking back on some of our procedures and refreshing myself, and I think we should all do that on a regular basis.
Okay, so in relation to practical skills and the reasons why we were here, which is because you injured your back, and then we're just part of that returning and coming back to it and then making sure you've got the right skills and everything else that goes with it. Do you think you met criteria, or do you think you met what your aims were at the start?
Yes, I do, yeah.
Yeah, and what's been the highlight for you? Key takeaways.
Key takeaways is remembering everything that we've talked about and following the correct procedures for moving any equipment. Like you said, or we have been told about the tile, the task individual, load and environment, and checking everything, and making it safe for everybody, and obviously myself,
Okay.
and moving things.
So within the assessment process, what do you think's gone well?
I think it is all gone well. It's just refreshing my memory of what we have to do, and with others helping out, making sure that their safety is paramount as well.
Okay. So in regards to keeping refreshed and updated, how do you think you could do that for the future or moving forward?
I think it's something to talk to my line manager about and see if there's any more courses to refresher courses on all of the things that we do out on the drill yard.
Okay. Okay, no problems at all. Any other areas you think you could have done better or improved on, or any other learning points?
Not anything that I can think of at the moment. No, I think everything was okay.
No, okay. Well, I want to say, and first off again, is just to thank you for your participation and enthusiasm through the assessment process of here. We went against a level 2 award in moving people safely, and there was a couple of key areas in there that we wanted to look at. So what I will say is overall, performance has been really good, and it's evident from the amount of previous experience you've got of moving items around, and I think you probably mentioned it in the past, is about that, even the bigger focus since you injured your back on correct manual handling techniques, and that's evident to see out there. And it was nice to see the use of things like the sack barrow, even for that short distance from the pallets to the firehouse, is using that rather than trying to carry them and move them across the drill yard manually and all that sort of stuff. So using the equipment that's in front of you. If I go through the assessment criteria, because that's probably an easier way of doing it, we talked about oral questioning, so the Q&A side of things, and we've covered that off a little bit whilst we were out in the yard just a minute ago. He's asking you some specific questions in and around certain areas as well, and how you would do things and how you would use them, relevant to your level in the organisation. And the majority of the answers you gave me and the way you were explaining stuff was really, really good. There's a couple of areas in there which probably you've identified them yourself there, which is around things like the various regulations that we have to abide by or which will impact onto us, so things like LOLA regulations, provision of use of work equipment regulations, but also about how we have the Health and Safety at Work Act and then the organisation's requirements to ensure a safe working environment. Yeah. So it's just about making sure you're really clear of all of those, and then underneath that your duties of an employer and employee that sits underneath them as well. But they're more the theoretical aspects that sit in the background there. Do you agree with that?
Yes.
Yeah. Practically, what you were doing out there, very, very, your understanding and underpinning knowledge in the other areas was very, very good. And that was evidenced when we talked about the second part of that assessment criteria, which was your learner statement, where I asked you just to sort of understand how manual handling risk assessments contribute to health and safety. And within that learner statement, which I won't read out now because it's quite a long document, but that'd be submitted as part of the evidence bundle, you were able to describe the principles of risk control hierarchy applied to manual handling. You've also described how the difference between hazards and risk and all that sort of stuff. So your underpinning knowledge and all that sort of stuff that sits in and around there is really, really good. And what we did was we tied that back to the e-learning course that you've done recently on manual handling, and about what you learned from there. So you were able to sort of take that learning and bring it forward. You're quite right, though. What I would suggest you do within there is that whole process of making sure you stay on top of that skill, because it is quite a primary part of your role. And I know we've done a very small simulation today, and I know you do a lot more lifting than that, but you were able to explain how you do things, but how you better apply that in the workplace, and then you keep on top of it as well. Because no one wants to see you, and I think you made the comment down the far end, and you only get one back. You don't want to ruin it. The last part on there, which was about the safe manual handling principles, and that was demonstrating efficient and safe manual handling when you're lifting an object manually alone, which you did. And how do you feel that went?
Fine.
Yeah?
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, and I agree with you. The way you were able to communicate it and explain what you were doing, the way you talked about tile, the task of the individual load and the environment, and about how you brought those kinds of bits through as well there. So you were able to explain what you do in a fashion as to how you do your job. And you're able to demonstrate that quite nicely. And I like things like putting a pallet on the side of the crib and then using that as a pivot point to take some of that load out for you, cutting the pallets down, and also your understanding around things like the pallet truck and making sure it's tested and it's in date, and making sure that if there's a defect, don't use it, scan it, and all those kinds of bits. So there's some knowledge that's in there is really, really good. So, okay.
There's one other thing that I didn't add to that as well, because moving the pallets today, because it's raining out, you've got to be aware that that rain, the water is going to soak into the pallets, and it doesn't make it half as much heavy again, and you've got to be aware of that as well.
Okay, so how would you adapt your plan of moving kit or moving pallets in that situation?
Just to be aware that it is heavier, and if it is too heavy for me, then to get assistance for lifting on the final part of that stage. Using the pallet trucks isn't a problem. It's the second part loading into the crib. If they're too heavy because they're wet, which increases the weight by probably about a third as much again sometimes. So
okay, no, and that goes back to the second part of this, is about using that second person to help you as well.
Yes.
So it's really good you've identified there, and you know the job, and you know the potential ways that things fluctuate and change. It goes back to that previous part about risks and hazards, and about using someone else to do it. And then the way you worked with Pete was really good. You know, there was a bit there where you lifted the dummy down, and you were able to clearly communicate to him what you wanted to achieve. Do you feel you did that okay?
Yeah.
Yeah? Do you think Pete understood what you wanted to achieve?
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
He was happy. He would have told me if he wasn't happy.
No.
Well, I should hope he would ask me if there was any problem. Yeah.
Absolutely, and from where I was stood as well, that whole, it was like the synchronised movement between the pair of you, and it was always that confirmation, ready, brace, lift, okay, I want to lay the casualty down on the floor now, and I want to move them from this position to out there. And then we're going to load them down, ready, brace, lower, and all that sorts of stuff. So you were doing all those bits in there as well, and explaining to them at each stage it was going through. When you were taking the casualty back in, you started walking backwards with the casualty there. Do you want to explain that to me?
The reason for walking backwards with the casualty was because of the small area we were going into. I didn't want to start turning round and twisting my body to turn the casualty round in that small area, because that would cause problems for me and my assistant moving around in that small area, and could cause us problems with muscles and ligaments from twisting with the weight we were carrying. So it's better to go back in a straight line. There was another option where we could have faced my assistant the other way, and we could have walked round the drill yard and back in, but we would have gone in with feet first, which would have been the wrong way to hand him up, so he would have to be turned round in a small area. So with my assistant guiding me walking backwards was a perfectly safe way to do it, with me looking around occasionally as well. So.
No, okay, fantastic, thank you. I did say a little bit on there about where we talked about taking the casualty upstairs, and you explained to me about using the winch, and then if the winch wasn't available or broken, how you would get around that as well. And I asked you to expand a little bit more on there. And what I was looking for you to is sort of, when I sort of said about linking it across the tile, that movement and that body and that, and it was just about sort of making sure that it's a bit more clearly defined for moving forward into the future. In and around, it's got a task which is moving the drill dummies up to the upper floors, the individual, and it's going to need more than one individual. The load, I can't get around that. But the environment is getting them up the stairs, so I'm going to need more people to help me and then put different methods in place as well. So it was kind of like just revisiting that. But we've explained it in other areas. It's just about making sure it's clearly defined in that part there. However, overall, really, really good. Really, really good. The whole thing you've done through questioning, the learner assessment, and the practical demonstration you've done today demonstrates to me that you know what you're doing and how you're doing it. And it gives me a lot more confidence, or it doesn't give me more confidence, it makes me comfortable in the fact that you're lifting and moving things around the yard safely and doing your job properly. Does that fit with you, or is that...
It's right, I have to, with my limited movement on my hip and my rotator cuff injury in the shoulder. It's just things that I have to do.
Yeah.
It's like with moving casualties upstairs. If it's a 50 kilo dummy, well, does it need to be a 50? Can I lower it down to the 20 kilos and move that upstairs as well? And that would make life easier for the manual handling.
Yeah.
But if not, then ask for assistance.
Fantastic. So that's the assessment process done. How have you found that? How have you found the assessment process? Is there anything that I could have done better, or you felt it could have been done better in the entire process?
I think we can all do better in the process of the things that we're doing. But overall, I think it was generally good. Your delivery of what you wanted was pretty damn clear as well. So I appreciate that. It wasn't difficult to understand from you. You said what you wanted. And what you wanted was, I think, done in the correct way.
No worries. Thank you very much. Are you comfortable with the assessment outcome?
Yes.
Okay, no problem at all. Next steps then, really, Andy, for me is I'll write up a report which I'll pass to you as well, and I'll give a copy if you're happy. I'll give it to Simon as well, which will just say the assessment outcome. And what it'll do is it'll cover off the bits that we've covered here today, the feedback that we've talked through and we've gone through now, and then some identified next steps. And then those identified next steps, as you've said yourself, is about access to more training and more input and more ability to practice with that underpinning knowledge, and more implementation and practice out on the drill yard, and being able to utilise different bits of equipment and stuff like that.
Yeah, with the manual handling, it is with actually what we've got on our computers. Is the course is still there, and I could review that and go back through it again. I wouldn't possibly have to take the final exam, but I could refresh on the whole thing that way as well, without going through to a supervisor or a manager.
Yeah, but if I let Simon know, and if you need any support on
Yeah.
that, then obviously he'll be able to provide that for you as well.
Yeah.
Okay, are you happy with that?
Yep, fine.
And you're happy with me to share that documentation?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
No problems at all then. In that case then I'll conclude the feedback session, and again by thanking you for your time and your enthusiasm through the process. And just to clarify that with the paperwork that's been kept here and these video recordings, they'll be uploaded. I'll submit them as part of my assessment process to the assessing body, as it were. The paper copies and the hard copies will be destroyed, and then I'll only keep electronic copies on my laptop for the purposes they're required for, and then as soon as it's done, then they'll be destroyed and removed as well, so that there won't be held anything there.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Andy. It's
Thank
really
you.
appreciated.